Mr. Jobst clearly intended to be the knight who slew the Mitchell dragon. Unfortunately for him, his lance was not as strong as he believed it to be, and it has broken in the contest.
Hello, you absolute legends, is an introduction you might be familiar with if you're a big fan of Karl Jobst, or Jobst. I don't actually know how to properly pronounce his name, but I've watched a few of his videos, and if you recognize him, you know who we're talking about today. But if you don't recognize him, he's most well known for his speed running content. He makes videos about speedrunners, about fraud that's happened in that, and just kind of gaming related. But he's really enjoyed uncovering fraudsters. That's a big thing. And one of them, the most notable one that's been a part of his channel, is talking about Billy Mitchell. Billy Mitchell is well known for being the gamer of the century, as he's appointed himself, and being the world record holder for a Donkey Kong world record. This has been a highly contested issue, something that Karl has pushed Billy Mitchell on, as well as other people that have gotten into lawsuits with Billy Mitchell. But as you can see from the video just above my head, Billy had absolutely had it with Karl, and it was taking him to trial. And that was over 10 months ago, and finally, we have a verdict on that trial. Now, Karl has been pretty vocal in the fact that he thinks that this would be a slam dunk. He had started a GoFundMe to, build up a fund to go against Billy, as it's been made very clear that Billy enjoys going to court against people that he disagrees with, and he's got a lot of money to do so. But yesterday, we received news that unfortunately was not an April Fool's joke. Karl lost the case against Billy Mitchell. Karl posted on Twitter, "I lost. The judge found Billy to be a credible witness and believed his entire testimony. From that point on, unfortunately, there was really nothing that could have saved me. I will now obviously consider my options. I know many of you will be upset with this, and I am sorry for that. Thank you again for all the support I have received, and I will endeavor to work as hard as I can to repay all that you are owed." And then this was added context. Jobst was unable to defend at least 5 separate claims he made in his videos about Billy Mitchell. The legal challenge primarily contested videos which implied Mitchell's prior behavior and legal actions may have contributed to the ending of YouTuber Apollo Legend's life. So a lot of people were confused, and at first that confusion had come from, I thought this would be a slam dunk. We're talking about exposing Billy Mitchell cheating his way into the world records that he holds for Donkey Kong. What does this have anything to do with YouTuber Apollo Legend and the taking of their life? And here you can see, a lot of people that just weren't following the case going along saying, I just don't understand how they could have seen this any other way. How is this so obvious to everyone in the gaming community, but not in the court of law? Someone even mentions that the judge had said themselves they found Billy to be someone who falsified gaming achievements, and he did find that he was litigious, meaning willing to, without good reason, take people to court, to those that were critical of him. Here's someone else saying, how is this possible? And then we got a bit more information with this comment here. Craig says, the judge made it a point to draw attention to your arrogance throughout the trial, and now you're phrasing things as if the judge believed lies told by Mitchell and that he was out to get you. You defamed the guy and made a false claim, and you lost. It's that simple. So after he posted this on Twitter, there was a lot of conversation about the fact that a lot of people felt misled about the purpose of this court case. And a lot of people were accusing Karl of lying about the nature of the case and why he was going to court against Billy Mitchell. And they were assuming that he was lying about the facts of this, or was not, deliberately sharing specifically what he was going to court on. That being the insinuation that Karl had made that Billy Mitchell was responsible, at least in part, for the death of Apollo Legend. And Karl had capitalized on this with a GoFundMe, where he did raise a lot of money to support him going to court. Karl made a follow-up post saying, there are a lot of lies being spread that I falsely claimed Billy sued me because I said he cheated. I never claimed this, I only claimed it was relevant as part of my defense. I didn't openly discuss certain details for obvious reasons, but I was never trying to hide why I was being sued. And then he attaches this link here.
Hello, you absolute legends. As most of you know, back in 2021, Billy Mitchell, Video Game Player of the Century, sued me for defamation, claiming damages of $450,000. Since that time, I have been defending myself rigorously, sparing absolutely no expense, hiring the best lawyers possible, and to date, I have incurred legal fees of $280,000. Fortunately, I haven't done this alone, and I've been blessed to have had the support of so many amazing people. For example, last year I launched a GoFundMe asking for help, which raised almost 150,000 Australian dollars.
But time went on. And eventually, without a single source, except a now deleted post on Reddit, now deleted post was his only source where he blamed me for taking the life of another human being and for what I did to him. And I said, that's it.
Billy Mitchell is referring to the YouTuber Apollo Legend, who tragically took his own life in December of 2020. I won't go into specifics about this particular point because it does relate to his ongoing lawsuit against me. But again, everything he just said is a lie. I didn't say what he claims that I said, and my source for what I did say was not just a deleted post on Reddit.
I showed you some specific points in the video, but let's continue on. In this video, I fully allow Billy to explain why he was suing me. And I specifically state that I chose not to go into too much detail because it related to the ongoing lawsuit. Furthermore, I never asked for money when Billy originally sued me. It was only after he sent me a second lawsuit and a threat of a third lawsuit, which were completely unrelated, that I needed to crowdfund. My total legal costs are well over $600K, so any money I received went to my lawyers. I did not intentionally try to deceive anyone or trick anyone just to defraud them or scam them out of money. But the criticism that I should have been more transparent is valid, and I'm sorry. Truthfully, I didn't want to repeat or mention any claims regarding Apollo Legend because it may have jeopardized my defense. I never intentionally lied regarding Apollo Legend either. I relied on incorrect information from multiple sources. I retracted the statements once I confirmed it was inaccurate, but apparently it was not sufficient. At some point, of course, I will produce a video discussing everything, and I still believe the decision today was not the correct one. Now this post, he even just takes admittance and says, hey, I could have been more transparent about what was going on, and I didn't do that, etc., etc. And for the most part, I just think it's a decently sized apology and it gives good examples. But as a matter of fact, the top reply on his post comes from Nicholas DeOrio, and he says this, and I think it's a really good message, honestly. I don't think there was any malicious intent here on your part. You seem genuinely passionate about the things you've covered on your channel, and you've been one of the best at exposing cheaters for years. It really f***ing sucks how this all went down, as I really don't believe you intentionally set out to defame Billy. It's really unfortunate that the Apollo misinformation will be a costly black mark on your otherwise stellar content creation career, but it's also a warning to guys like me not to get carried away. On your channel, you have made tons of videos exposing Billy above board for lies that are better researched and verifiable. I don't personally see what incentive you'd have to just make an out-of-character lie with the intent to harm him, especially pre-lawsuit. Ultimately though, intent aside, this was your mistake and it's up to you to accept the consequences with grace or go in a different direction. As for the disclosure, I think a lot of people lost track of what your lawsuit was mainly focused on due to the nature of the content you make being obviously more gaming centric. It felt odd at times with how much you could seemingly disclose and discuss openly on video. It didn't help that the other lawsuit that was gaming record centric was also going on simultaneously for much of the coverage. I don't think you set out to mislead, but even I lost track over time as to what exactly you were doing. Anyways, I hope you're well. Next one coming from TDM Jesus. It's understandable people get confused, but you weren't obliged to constantly spell it out for people either. The GoFundMes were pretty clear. There's a cautionary lesson here, but you're not everyone's mom. Looking forward to your next upload. Now, honestly, I kind of agree with Nick and the other points made. He doesn't have an obligation in those instances to disclose that information. As a matter of fact, it could devalue the donations that would come in from a GoFundMe. Or if he were to make statements in the GoFundMe's description to better describe the situation that end up making it more difficult or not possible for him to defend himself properly in court, that would end up making the donations useless, right? So I can understand why he wouldn't want to include those things. And Karl, yes, technically did not at any point tell us that it was specifically he was going to court in this case specifically because of the world record cheating claims. He never did say that, but it seems more like because a lot of what Karl talks about, as well as the secondary lawsuit that Nick brought up being related to the record cheating, it really blurred the lines. And when it comes to giving your money in a GoFundMe, unless you know the people there and you're able to like have your hand directly on the pulse, if you're not that comfortable with that, you probably shouldn't be donating the money in the first place. But I don't think he was really in a place where he could really perfectly encapsulate and describe exactly what was going on in the court cases to help the people out. And look, I barely know the court system here in the United States, let alone Australia. But when we're talking about defamation and proving that it was done intentionally to harm Billy's character, or that Karl was saying those things to intentionally get people to believe that he was responsible for the death of Apollo Legend, knowing full well that that wasn't true. So take what I'm going to say with a grain of salt, but when it comes down to the defamation and trying to find if Karl was doing this maliciously, I think it's very tough, at least in the United States, again, I could be wrong, but to prove that he was doing that and operating on this idea that he knew full well that he wasn't being honest and was pushing that narrative to try to defame Billy. Like other people have said, Karl has done a great job of proving that Billy Mitchell is very scummy when it comes to the gaming records and everything like that. It seems strange and a bit out of character for Karl to have been doing something much more malicious, and it seems weird. But I'm sure that Australian law is different, especially when it comes to defamation. And, you know, at that point, you just kind of respect the court's decision unless Karl ends up going for an appeal. But to close that all out, Karl had uploaded a video in the last 24 hours here, and he ended up making a post saying, "I removed my last video. Obviously, people are upset, so it is better I address the concerns of the public first and make a video explaining everything before releasing future videos. I would just ask you wait for my video before making a full judgment. I'm sorry for releasing the video today. It was due to a sponsor obligation, but that's far less important than addressing your concerns." Now, I am interested to hear what you guys think. I'm honestly a decent fan of Karl. I usually watch his videos when they come out, and it is a bummer that he lost in court. I'm curious to know if he ends up pushing this further, and I'd like to hear what you guys think if you donated to his GoFundMe, anything like that. I do think a good chunk of this just happens to be because of the nature of the content that Karl puts out. A lot of people ended up getting those mixed together, and I don't know for sure if it was Karl's place to, you know, differentiate and really clear up that gray area. Realistically, I don't even know if he could had he wanted to. But I don't know. If you're a lawyer, you got family that's a lawyer, talk in the comments, argue with me or something. Also, check out the Discord. I play Dota and other really fun games and stuff, and you should join the Discord and chat sometime. I'll put a link in the comments down below. We'll see you guys later. Adios. Peace. Bye.